talk about Chuck Norris, the martial artist, Chuck Norris, the action star, or Chuck Norris, the internet sensation? This is the Last Picture Show with Rahim Khan, and I'm doing a Chuck Norris retrospective. Of course, he was a friend of Israel. He was politically very conservative and said and did many questionable things. And while not being, at least in my reckoning, sort of a pop culture icon or sort of a star in the firmament that is Hollywood, I still think he deserves mention because I think thanks to his celebrity, his fame, in becoming an internet meme, generations, or at least those who never even knew of his storied martial art career or what's it called? I mean, his films, they got to know him. And sort of even to this day, I mean, there's this fantastic meme around the death of the OnlyFans, what's it called, owner, creator, whatever. And it's going to pop up here. And there is Chuck Norris in his V, guarding the pearly gate, denying, what's it called, entry to this man. So, yeah, I think he's going to live, essentially, his internet fame is going to outlive his politics, his career, his talent. So there. Chuck Norris is interesting because the thing is that first of all, he served in the military. Then he got into, then sort of, he got into competitive martial arts and created quite a name for himself. I remember there was a video I was watching of him as I think he's in his 50s or 60s, and he is demonstrating hit, and God, they land like bullets. And I mean, for a man who, again, was a contemporary of Bruce Lee and other martial art luminaries. The guy was, I mean, he was really talented. I mean, that's what, in fact, led, I think, led to his introduction, or at least his first forays into filmmaking. Because the thing is, it was in the Bruce Lee movies that we see him squaring off. Famously, if you remember, it's what is it, Dance of Death, or which is the one? I'm forgetting the exact one, but it's him and Bruce Lee squaring off at the Colosseum. That, of course, led to other things. Now, I'm going to be talking about one of his movies, one that I actually thought was semi-decent as opposed to a lot of the shit that he starred in, even, of course, including Delta Force, which I think is exactly the kind of movie those soldiers in Persian Gulf right now should be watching, because it'll give them sort of aspirations as to what they could potentially do if they ever got the chance. That is, of course, if the Iranian missiles beat them to it. But before that, I feel that sort of, we all consider him as, yes, sort of like, sort of, maybe not one of the great action stars like Schwarzenegger or Stallone, but I mean, he was a lesser one. I mean, I'm not even calling him like sort of a second-rate one or a third-rate one, or even sort of like a B action star. But I mean, the thing is that he was, as okay, pair him to Steven Seagal. I definitely like this guy a lot better. Simply because I think that there was a little more substance to him. Substance that Seagal has he's gone on to ruin with his horrible toupee, his jazz music, and well, no, I don't much care about his politics. I mean, whatever. I mean, if he likes Putin, he likes Putin. Who gives a shit? But yeah, I think that sort of in these two lesser action stars, and when I say lesser, I also mean that I mean, can you count on your fingers the number of movies that they've done and the number of movies that you can actually remember these guys? I mean, notable films, films that you're like, oh yeah, man, that guy had that one film and that was fantastic. I mean, for Seagal, I can say it's like maybe Under Siege and maybe Under Siege 2. But like, and for this guy, it was like Delta Force and then a movie that I'm going to talk about, Code of Silence, which was a very against type casting for Norris, but I think it kind of did him well. Um, there was, of course, Walker Texas Ranger, which I never liked. I mean, I'm sure it had its fans and it went on for a couple of seasons, but it was never my cup of tea, particularly because of the thing is, it was kind of sort of evangelizing the politics that this man was, you know, into. And yeah, kind of found Walker ridiculous. But let's talk about Code of Silence. Code of Silence, a warrior with a heart full of love. Tributes paid to movie star Chuck Norris. 86. I think that's pretty good. I mean, a good old age to die at. Okay, Code of Silence. Now, Code of Silence was directed by Andrew Davis. And this is, of course, Andrew Davis of The Fugitive fame and several other movies. Like, for example, he directed a thing. What's it called? Seagal in that one. What was it? God, I hate when this happens to me. When I have these brain fart moments. Here we go. Bear with me for a second. Above the Law. And he also did Under Siege. So you can get where I'm coming from in that sort of the most notable movies for these respective actors were done by this director. So, yeah. Okay. So I like Code of Silence because unlike your typical, like, for example, if you were to compare it to Delta Force, which is just like sort of a very Reagan-esque propaganda movie, um, this movie, and I'll tell you, has, let me explain. Okay. So he plays a no nonsense cop in Chicago, Chuck Norris's character, and they have a sting going on where they're trying to corner what's it called these drug dealers. The thing goes wrong because sort of this rival gang comes in, shoots up the place, takes the drugs and the money, and leaves the Colombians who are sort of like think sort of in body bags, the police high and dry, and the Colombians subsequently on the warpath. And that is thanks to Henry Silva. Now, that's this very good sort of character actor from the 80s who predominantly played villains. I think he even played villain in what was it, Hard Target? One of these Seagal movies that he did later on. And so you have that. Where this movie is very interesting because that's like so you're on the surface, very like sort of run in the mill action thriller. But where this movie has this depth and this nuance that I really appreciated is this subplot, and that lends to, of course, the title. Because while this sting is going on, you have this one old cop who is the same. I'm forgetting the name of the actor. In fact, I'll cast. Oh God, is it this guy, Ralph Foodie? Yes, it's him. This is the same guy who, if you remember, and take the change, you filthy animal from Home Alone, right? The guy who was sort of what is the name of the movie? Angels with Dirty Wings. Wait, come on, Angels with Dirty Faces. I was close. He's that guy, and he has that laugh, almost like what's it called, Penguin from the Batman, the '60s show. Okay, so you have this cop who is pretty useless, and of course he's drinking on the job. So you have this kid like sort of get out from this. He's sort of seeing what the ruckus is because again there's like a sting going on. There's lots of like shooting and stuff like that. And out he pops, and this guy just he kills him. And in order to shift the blame, he says, "Oh, he pulled on me," and like he plants a weapon. So you have that, right? Chuck Norris's character doesn't buy the fact that the kid was in any way involved in this, and he kind of suspects that this dude, this older cop, um, that was a wrongful killing, and he did plant evidence. So the thing is that while you have the Colombians going on this sort of rampage to get at the Italians who, murdered most of their crew, and Chuck Norris's character trying to protect the daughter of one of these mafiosos, you also have this subplot going on of, this hearing, this inquiry into this, wrongful death, this shooting. And while most of the department gets behind this, you know, useless deadbeat cop, Norris's character, kind of says in more ways than one that, like, kind of he suspects that yes, this dude did, kill him. That, of course, leads to the entire like police force shunning this guy, shunning Norris's character, and he sort of goes charging after the Colombians in this one scene. And it's good because sort of on his way he's calling for backup and everyone's refusing. So that's where I like this movie. That's where I mean sort of it goes beyond your average like sort of boilerplate 80s action film. I really like that subplot in it. It's really a word on Norris in a second, but this really interesting bit that they have is that I think this is the first movie where you actually have like this, not the first movie, but at least a movie that from the 80s that I've seen, that you actually have this drone. It's like this tank, like this semi-autonomous sort of APC type thing, which they briefly show early on in the movie. And then because, of course, Norris, nobody has his back, he goes charging um, into sort of their hideout, and he kills most of them with this drone. Now, about Norris himself, you know, he always pray. Of course, he was the tough guy, right? And of course, the script allows him to have like sort of like his training scene where he's performing a thing, and then he has this other scene where he takes on a bunch of goons, and it's pretty good. It's like decent action, very reminiscent of the Seagal movie, in which he too, sort of gets to demonstrate his aikido. I like that sort of, and I think because Norris wasn't much of an actor, so he plays to his strength of being sort of like, the tight lipped, laconic, quiet, and yet strong action hero. And he does pretty well. I mean, sort of, yeah, I honestly, I liked him in this movie. I mean, sort of, he was good, uh, barring, of course, his stupid haircut. But, I have to say that sort of in all his body of work, if anything does live on, at least in my memory, and of course on the memes, in Code of Silence. Check it out.